This is 16-year-old me, waving goodbye to school forever. Allow me to explain. Throughout my time at school, I never really felt like I fitted in. When I was curious about something, I was told to keep quiet, put my head down and get on with my work. But I found this impossible as I'm naturally very hyperactive, which led to me always being in trouble. So when one of my teachers sat me down and said, "Let's be honest, Mark, you're not going anywhere, so here are your options. You either continue to study, but it'll be a waste of everyone's time, or you can leave and try and get a job." It was one of the best days of my life, as I was only focused on one thing: leaving. So I waved goodbye to the school with no qualifications or money under my belt, and when I became a millionaire in my early 20s, I was happy that I proved my teachers wrong. But even though I succeeded, I had very little direction and had to work out a lot of things by myself. That's why I'm making this video, because I wish I had something like this when I was starting out. If you follow all the steps I'm about to share, I don't see how you won't be miles ahead of everyone else. Actually, I pretty much guarantee you will be if you follow all of these steps. Step 1 is to create an investment budget. A lot of people put this as one of the last steps, but that's the main reason most people don't make it. They treat investing as an afterthought rather than a priority. I believe there are 3 types of people in the world: wasters, worriers, and winners, otherwise known as the 3 W's. Wasters go through life spending everything they earn. They say things like, "Money doesn't make you happy." However, at the same time, they are spending all of theirs trying to improve their lives. Worriers hoard their money like a squirrel saving its acorns for winter. They say things like, "Money doesn't grow on trees." The sad thing is, even though these people have a lot of money, they often deprive themselves of the little pleasures in life in order to save a few extra dollars. They're so focused on using budgets to keep their expenses down that they miss the far bigger picture. Winners are the complete opposite of both of these people. They understand that money can make them happy and that it does grow on trees if they invest correctly. They earn money not to spend it, but to invest, all while not depriving themselves of the things that they enjoy. To become a winner, you need to change the way you think about money. Instead of seeing it as a tool to get the things you want, start viewing it as a tool to get more money. The only other way to make money is by trading your time, and personally, I'd rather use my money than trade my literal years on this earth. Here's something to consider. If you worked for a whole year and saved up $10,000, but you spent it all on upgrades for your car, you'd have to save that money all over again, costing you another year. However, if you invested it correctly, you could use that $10,000 to make $100,000. Then you could purchase the upgrades you want with some of the profits and still have an extra $90,000 that you can reinvest. That brings me on to step 2, which is to increase your value. Let me tell you the story of Cooper and Dwayne. They both lived in California and decided to take up surfing as a new hobby. Cooper searched for the biggest waves every day. He didn't bother with the smaller ones. Some days, if he couldn't find any waves big enough, he just went home. On the other hand, Dwayne went out every day and rode as many waves as he could. Whether big or small, he simply enjoyed the process of surfing and improving his skills. One day, Cooper and Dwayne were out at sea when a huge wave started to build on the horizon. Cooper thought to himself, this was exactly what he had been waiting for, a wave that was finally big enough for him. On the other hand, Dwayne was just excited to put his skills to the test and thought of it like any other wave. They both began paddling. Dwayne expertly popped up onto his feet and rode inside the barrel of the wave. He looked back expecting to see Cooper behind him, but he wasn't there. Cooper had fallen off almost as soon as the wave had arrived. All he could do was watch as Dwayne rode it all the way to the shore. In Cooper's mind, Dwayne had just got lucky, but the truth was, Dwayne had put in all the practice and learned something from every wave he'd ever caught. This is how most people approach getting rich. They spend too long searching for the one thing that will make them a ton of money, all while ignoring the day-to-day things they can be doing to increase their value. Huge waves do come every now and again. I've benefited from the dot-com bubble in the late 90s, the housing bubble in the 2000s, and the recent crypto boom. However, I wouldn't have been able to take advantage of them if I hadn't increased my value by investing back into myself. When you start thinking this way, you stop seeing every online course or YouTube video as the one thing that will make you rich, and instead just a little wave to conquer and add to your skill set. So where should you focus your time? Well, if you notice there's a clear gap in the market for a certain skill, such as a plumber, it really is a nightmare finding a good plumber nowadays. But anyway, that aside, if you decide to go down this path, it might make sense to spend $1,000 to get a qualification and then start making upwards of $5,000 a month. Over the course of a year, that would be a 60x return on your investment. If you can't think of anything to do, don't waste time waiting for waves. Instead, you can spend time mastering universal skills like public speaking, negotiating, and content creation. These skills will all come in handy no matter what path you decide to follow in the future, as they're all transferable and can be used in multiple areas. I'm not saying all education is good. I believe far too many people are going to university for degrees that aren't even worth the paper they're written on. However, if you view every skill as an investment and get some kind of return on it, then it's worthwhile learning. If it was me, I would repeat this step as many times as possible until I've reached my maximum earning potential. Step 3 is to open investing accounts. If you want to avoid being a worrier, then once you've increased your earning potential, you're going to need somewhere to invest your money, so it's time to open some accounts. It's a good idea to allocate a portion of your investment budget into the stock market. This isn't likely to make you rich in the short term, but if you begin early enough, then in later years, it will start to compound. It's just so much easier than it was back in my day, as you can do it all from your phone. There are various different apps. I'll leave some of those links down below. One of my favourites is Lightyear, and they're also kindly sponsoring this section of the video. Lightyear is looking to give every European low cost and convenient access to the world's stock markets, and they're great at what they do. The platform has over 3,000 stocks and ETFs from the UK, US and across Europe, including ones that track the S&P 500. They've also just launched lots of well-known UK names, from Tesco's to AstraZeneca and Barclays to Burberry, to name just a few. There's something for everyone in Lightyear. And there's more. On Lightyear, you can also earn interest on your uninvested money in 3 currencies, the euro, dollar and pound. If you're watching this from the UK, the Eurozone or Hungary, you can download and start using Lightyear today. Use my code Tilbury to get started and receive a $10 fractional share after making your first investment. But let me remind you, investing always carries a risk, and the value of any investment can decrease as well as increase. Step 4 is to build assets. This is the real key to building mass wealth. Let me tell you the story of John and Alex, as it perfectly explains this concept. After John maxed out his earning potential like we covered in step 1, he just invested the rest of his money into the stock market each month in the hopes of becoming a millionaire one day. Alex didn't have the same patience. Although he maxed out his earning potential and invested in stocks, he also focused on building assets. He started by identifying a gap in the market and put his unique skills to use. He created his own brand of craft beer, which he spent a lot of time perfecting. He experimented with different flavors, brewing techniques and branding strategies. He even invested in creating a website and social media accounts to promote his product. John, on the other hand, was always skeptical of Alex's business, thinking that it was far too much work with little return. Instead, John just kept investing the same amount into the stock market every month. A couple of years went on and Alex's business began to grow. He started getting orders from all over the country and his craft beer became a household name. John, however, still had many years left before his stock market investments would start paying off. If you think about it, investing in the stock market is just buying a little piece of an asset someone else has created. However, if you can get in on the ground floor by investing your time and money into building your own business, then you'll probably be able to generate far more money. The moral of the story is to make sure you're doing both at the same time. Step 5, use debt strategically. A lot of people aren't going to like this one, but being in debt isn't automatically a bad thing. Let me explain. If you want to buy multiple properties to rent out and generate passive income, you might think you have to save up a massive amount of money, but that's not necessarily the case. Instead, you can use debt strategically to buy a house that's in a bad condition. This worst house in the best street can be purchased for a lower price, let's say $100,000. Then you can spend $50,000 to fix it up and make it worth $200,000. After that, you can refinance it for 75% of its new value, which is $150,000. This way, you can use that $150,000 to buy another property or renovate another worst house and repeat the process. Think of it as a a real-life game of Monopoly. But in order to do something like this, you'll need to have a good credit score. So if I was starting from scratch, I'd make sure to get a credit card as soon as possible and pay it off in full at the end of each and every month in order to build my credit score. This is like a scorecard lenders use to see how reliable you are. I know it seems crazy that you have to use debt to be seen as reliable, but that's just the way it is. So instead of thinking that debt is always bad, try to understand how to use it to your advantage. Step 6. Don't spend earned money. When it comes to money, there's a common misconception that the more money you make, the more money you should spend. However, this couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, the key to having a consistently great life is to spend only what your investment portfolio yields. This is normally around 8 to 10%. I'm not saying to actually take the money out of your investments, just to spend that percentage of your earnings. I know this can sound confusing, so for example, if you have $1 million invested, then you'd be able to spend up to 10% of that value, which is $100,000 per year from your earnings without having to worry too much. Of course, this does rely on you making a lot, but once you've made it to step 6, this shouldn't be too much of an issue. Think of it this way. Every dollar you earn is like a seed that you can plant and watch grow into a money tree. The more seeds you plant, the bigger your portfolio becomes and the more money it will yield. And just like a tree, if you take care of your portfolio and only take the fruit it yields, it will continue to grow and provide for you in the future. If you want to see what I learned from reading over 40 books about money, I'm going to leave that video right up there. But don't click on it just yet. Make sure to subscribe if you want to grow your wealth, okay? I'll see you over there.
If I started from scratch again, I would do this differently. Not because the past was a mistake, but because experience has a way of sharpening clarity. Starting over is not about erasing everything that came before. It's about using what you've learned to build something stronger, smarter, and more intentional. If I were standing at the very beginning again, with no resources, no reputation, no safety net, and only awareness as my advantage, I would focus first on mindset before anything else. I would stop chasing quick wins and external validation and instead commit deeply to becoming someone who can sustain success long-term. I've learned that the quality of your thinking determines the quality of your outcomes, so I would invest time daily in learning how to think clearly, critically, and independently. I would read relentlessly, not for entertainment alone, but to understand how the world actually works: psychology, money, history, human behavior, systems, and leverage. I would stop waiting for motivation and instead build discipline early, because motivation is unreliable, but discipline compounds. If starting again, I would prioritize skills over credentials. I would stop assuming that degrees, titles, or certificates guarantee competence or opportunity. Instead, I would focus on learning skills that create real value in the real world. Communication would be at the top of that list: writing clearly, speaking persuasively, and listening deeply. I would practice explaining complex ideas in simple language, because clarity is power. Alongside communication, I would learn how to sell, not in a manipulative way, but in a way that understands people's problems and offers genuine solutions. Sales is simply the transfer of belief, and every meaningful opportunity requires it. I would also invest early in learning how to learn faster, because adaptability matters more than any single skill in a rapidly changing world. If I started from scratch again, I would stop trying to do everything alone, but I also wouldn't rush to trust everyone. I would be far more intentional about the people I surround myself with. I've learned that your environment shapes your behavior more than your willpower ever could. I would seek out people who are curious, disciplined, and honest, even if they're ahead of me or completely different from me. I would avoid people who constantly complain, blame, or live in a victim mindset, because negativity is contagious and expensive. I would learn earlier that you don't need a huge network. You need a small circle of people who challenge you, tell you the truth, and inspire you to raise your standards. If beginning again, I would respect time as my most valuable asset. I would stop trading time for short-term comfort and start investing it in long-term growth.
I would build routines that protect my mornings and evenings, because how you start and end your day defines the quality of everything in between. I would reduce distractions aggressively. I would limit social media, stop consuming content mindlessly, and become far more selective about what I allow into my attention. Attention is currency, and I would guard it like money. Instead of reacting to everything, I would focus on fewer goals and pursue them with intensity and patience. Starting over, I would also redefine failure much earlier. I would stop seeing failure as something to avoid and start treating it as data. Every mistake would be feedback, not a verdict on my worth. I would take more calculated risks and stop waiting until I felt ready, because readiness often comes after action, not before. I would ship imperfect work, launch before I was confident, and learn in public. Fear of embarrassment held me back longer than lack of ability ever did. If I could begin again, I would act sooner and reflect faster. If I started from zero, I would take my health far more seriously from day one. I would understand that physical energy fuels mental clarity, emotional stability, and consistency. I would prioritize sleep, movement, and nutrition, not as vanity goals, but as performance foundations. I would stop glorifying burnout and overwork and instead build sustainable rhythms. There is no success worth having if your body and mind are constantly breaking down. I would learn earlier that rest is not laziness, it's strategy. If starting again, I would develop a healthier relationship with money. I would stop seeing money as a measure of self-worth and start seeing it as a tool. I would learn basic financial literacy early, how to budget, save, invest, and manage risk. I would live below my means longer than necessary and delay lifestyle inflation. Instead of trying to look successful, I would focus on becoming financially resilient. I would build multiple streams of income slowly and intentionally rather than chasing get-rich-quick schemes. Compounding works best when given time and consistency. If I had a clean slate again, I would stop waiting for permission. I would stop assuming that someone else needs to approve my ideas, my path, or my ambitions. Most people are too busy managing their own fears to stop you anyway. I would create more, share more, and express my ideas without obsessing over how they're received. I would understand earlier that criticism is inevitable, but regret is optional. It's better to be misunderstood while moving forward than understood while standing still. If I started from scratch again, I would learn to embrace boredom and solitude. I would stop filling every quiet moment with noise. Some of the best ideas, insights, and breakthroughs come when you allow your mind to wander without stimulation. I would journal regularly, not to document my life, but to clarify my thinking. Writing forces honesty, and honesty accelerates growth. I would spend more time reflecting on what's actually working and what's not, instead of blindly repeating habits out of comfort. If beginning again, I would let go of perfectionism sooner. I would understand that perfection is often disguised fear. I would aim for progress, not flawlessness. I would break big goals into small, repeatable actions and focus on consistency over intensity. Small actions done daily outperform massive efforts done occasionally. I would stop underestimating how powerful, boring, disciplined work can be over time. If I were starting again, I would stop comparing my timeline to others. Comparison creates unnecessary pressure and blinds you to your own path. I would remember that everyone is playing a different game with different rules, resources, and starting points. Instead of asking, "Why am I behind?" I would ask, "What's the next best step I can take today?" Progress is personal, not competitive. If I started from scratch again, I would be kinder to myself while still holding myself accountable. I would stop confusing self-criticism with self-improvement. Growth comes from honest evaluation paired with compassion. I would forgive myself faster for mistakes and focus on adjusting behavior rather than punishing myself mentally. Shame never produces lasting change, but clarity does. If beginning again, I would define success for myself early instead of inheriting someone else's definition. I would ask deeper questions about what kind of life I actually want, not just what looks impressive from the outside. I would design my goals around freedom, fulfillment, and contribution, not just status or income. I would remember that success without alignment eventually feels empty. If I started over, I would play the long game in everything. I would stop chasing shortcuts and start building foundations. I would understand that meaningful results take time and that patience is not passive, it's active commitment over years. I would focus on building trust, reputation, and skills that compound quietly. I would choose direction over speed and resilience over hype. If I were at the starting line again, knowing what I know now, I would simplify more. I would stop overcomplicating decisions and focus on fundamentals. Show up, do the work, learn from feedback, repeat. Most breakthroughs aren't the result of extraordinary moves, but of ordinary actions done consistently over a long period. I would trust that process sooner. If I started from scratch again, I would remember this above all. You don't need to have everything figured out to begin. You just need to begin, stay honest with yourself, and keep moving forward. The path reveals itself through action, not overthinking. And if I could live by that from the very start, everything else would eventually fall into place.